Today we're going to take a look at two amazing cities on opposite coasts of the United States, Boston and San Diego. And if you're considering a move, a visit, or you're just curious about these two vibrant cities, well then you've come to the right place because we're going to get into it, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between on this video. If that's what you're after, well, stick with us because we're going to get after it right now. Now, one thing these two cities have in common is they are not the cheapest. In fact, they have both at different times, different years, been ranked as the most expensive city to be in. So they've got that in common, but the similarities do end there. While they're both on the coast, they live very differently. They have different lifestyles. So let's jump into that because I think that's what you're here for, is what is it really like in each place and how will they be similar, but most importantly, how will they be different so you can make a decision? Now, San Diego is laid back, beachy feel, all the things we've covered in a lot of our other videos, including just some of the most beautiful beaches on the planet and that incredible sense of just being able to do pretty much anything, whether you want it to be a water sport or go, ride buggies in the desert all in the same day, or if you want, sure, go skiing, literally all in the same day. So there's so much to do, and while it's an expensive city, the thing about San Diego is that it's not necessarily expensive to have a life here. It's an interesting place where there's just so much more of a commitment to the outdoors. In fact, when you look at even bedrooms, coming back to real estate, when you're looking at bedrooms and the secondary bedrooms or even a master bedroom in a home in San Diego, they tend to be smaller. Why? Because there's a bigger commitment to the common areas and especially to an indoor-outdoor flow. And there's also just the fact that we live outside. It's the mountains that are part of the taxes we pay, and we pay taxes, trust me on that one. I mean, it is not the best for that, but you get 9 national parks, you get beaches up and down the coast, you get a lot that is free that you're just simply getting for the fact that you are a resident here. And so again, expensive city, sure, but not expensive to have a life. And it always hits me whenever I'm in one of these beautiful places, like just an incredible sunrise or a sunset or just a walk on the beach that is, what's the cost of that? What's the price of it? I mean, literally, right? The old kind of cliched MasterCard thing, it's priceless. And I'm looking at that and just thinking, there's no way to experience this any better. You could be a billionaire, you could be, first year out of school, just trying to make it. And you are having that experience just the same. It offers a lot of those moments where you get these rich experiences, rich times, like these times where you literally feel like king or queen of the world and you didn't have to even open your wallet for it. Now, San Diego is a much newer city. Of course, there is architecture that dates back to the 1800s, but very little of it. For the most part, you're looking at a lot of 1960s, a lot of 1970s, and really even a lot of 2000s and beyond construction. Very planned, kind of cookie cutter neighborhoods, a lot of that, but we do have our older neighborhoods with a lot of character kind of just sprinkled in throughout the North Parks, South Parks, the Mission Hills, the La Joillas, and parts of Encinitas, but also parts of Encinitas is very new. So for the most part, if we just want to, if we want to generalize, San Diego's on the newer side, while Boston, let's jump over to Boston. This has a bigger city feel, no question about it, and it has a historic feel. And that is something I love and appreciate about Boston. It has a true sense of history, and rightfully so. I mean, our country basically was born out of events that occurred right there in the heart of Boston. And it's very cool. If you've ever walked through the streets, cobblestone everywhere, little coffee shops, just little storefronts, places, underground spots to be discovered. It has that very historic feel that you cannot manufacture. You can't create it. You can't buy your way into it. It has to be authentic, and Boston most certainly has that. I mean, for God's sake, even its ballpark, Fenway Park, is a historic place, right? Petco Park, beautiful, ridiculously nice, but historic, no, not at all. Now, one thing that I'll say though about Boston, and this just might be the very reason I live in California, and I live in San Diego specifically, is I think it has a little bit of a dreary feel, a little bit kind of gloomy, a little melancholic. It had just missing a little bit of vibrance that San Diego most certainly has. And maybe, I don't know what it is, maybe it's the margaritas or the beach or I don't know, but San Diego has a little more you're gonna see more people smiling, put it that way. than you're going to find as you walk up and down the streets in Boston. Now, what the reason is behind that, or is that just my opinion? Maybe, but that's my experience that I want to share with you. Having said that, I still can absolutely appreciate and just tell you, you need to go to Boston, whether you choose to live there or whether you choose to visit, because it's hard to replace just the nature of that older part of town. It is really, really special. I really especially recommend you end up in the North End, visit Little Italy, all the little alleyways, go get a cannoli. I mean, it will transport you back to, for me personally, and transported me back to a little scene I remember in my mind in Sicily during my honeymoon in this little piazza. And Boston had that. So it has what San Diego in many ways cannot produce, but at the same time, you might find yourself just sort of in better spirits over time here because, I don't know, the sun, the mountains, the beach, it has something to it. Now, if you're a foodie, and I'm most certainly that, maybe that's why I find myself going back to Boston, that's a special place. They have really great street food. They have great Italian food. They have great cuisine really from all over the world. And they get, of course, the reputation on the lobster rolls and, all that seafood, the chowder, all of that. So if you're into chowder, seafood, right, traditional New England food, then you would really like Boston. But it doesn't end there. I think when you look at their Chinese food scene, their Italian food scene, it is pretty much, if I had to choose one city to eat in, San Diego versus Boston, I'm actually going Boston on this one. San Diego, it's been up and up and up, improving all the time, improving, and more restaurants, more world-renowned chefs coming here. And in fact, just a quick little fact for you is we have more Michelin star restaurants than they do, but still, overall, I think it's easier to find a really, really satisfying meal in Boston than it is in San Diego. By the way, if we haven't met, I'm Dan Beer with Beer Home Team eXp Realty here in San Diego, and we're helping people just like you every single day make the move to San Diego or move within San Diego, whether they're buying or selling. And we don't care if it's today, in a year, in 10 years. We just want to help make everything easy for you, answer questions. So go to the first pinned comment. You'll see all kinds of ways to reach us. And you can text, email, call us. You can set up a Zoom call, and we will help you make a smooth move. And of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you are the first to know of any changing market conditions in San Diego. Now let's keep going. All right, let's jump over to something people ask about for both locations. Weather. Is it really that cold in Boston? Is it really that perfect in San Diego? Well, let's take a look. Starting in San Diego, we have a mild Mediterranean climate. And if you look at the winter temperatures, and I have them here written down for me, my memory is not that good, is in the winter, we can range from anywhere in the mid-40s, but that's your early morning. What the thing about San Diego, before I even continue to remember, is we have big swings. There's some parts of the country where the temperature in the coldest part of the day is almost the same, within a few degrees of the warmest part of the day. Not here. Here we get big swings. So early mornings, you might find mid-40s, but we'll be into the high 60s by that afternoon, and that's in the heart of winter. Okay, so the summers get warm, but it's still always so comfortable. You're talking about low 60s, maybe low 70s in the colder time of the day, up into the 80s in the warmer part of the day. If we have a 90s day in San Diego, and if we get an occasional day that hits 100 degrees Fahrenheit, that's a rare day. Everyone's complaining. Everyone's like, what's going on? The world's ending. I mean, it's not our typical weather. So our normal summer weather, just think 80s. Winter weather, think 60s. Spring and fall, think somewhere in between. Now, San Diego is known for being a very dry climate, not a lot of rain. It's true, but we do get our rain. It's particularly between November and March. That's our rainy season. Of course, it's going to pale in comparison to a lot of other rainy seasons, but we get some rain during those days. If you're looking to avoid rain completely, then November to March would not be your time to be here. My personal experience, though, I think November is a beautiful month in San Diego, as is October. Just such a beautiful month. A lot of the summer crowds are gone. The temperatures are still amazing. And most importantly, the sunsets, you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere in the world with such consistent, just wildly colored sunsets as what we get here in October and November. And yes, we're known for our sunshine. In fact, 260 days a year of bluebird skies. So 260 days of sun. If you're into that kind of thing, San Diego might be for you. If you're just sort of like, nah, sun, forget about it, I'm not, then you might be more a Boston person. Let's talk about Boston. Let's start actually with one of the nicest things about Boston, which is they do have a very distinct 4 seasons. San Diego, not as much. We have some trees that'll change, right? Some foliage, but you actually kind of have to go hunt those down. In Boston, there is the very distinct 4 seasons, and that is a beautiful thing. A lot of people miss that when they lose it. And a lot of people don't really love it when they have it because it gets quite cold as well. But overall, it is not an Arctic kind of environment in Boston. In fact, it's considered to be fairly temperate. So what does that mean? Well, in the winter, their temperatures tend to be in the low to mid 30s, which might sound cold. Well, go talk to someone in Minnesota, you'll find out it's not cold, right? Wisconsin folks, right? That's not so cold. I went to school in Syracuse, New York, upstate New York. Trust me, if we were ever in the 30s in the winter, we would have broken out our shorts and tank tops, okay? So that is not really that bad for a cold weather, northeast, snowy place. 30s, totally manageable. Now with that winter, of course, they will get frequent snowstorms in the winter, so just know that snow will be part of your life. But let's shift over to the summer. I think something kind of surprising about the summer in Boston as opposed to a place like New York, they're not that far apart. New York can get that sweltering heat that's just suffocating. And Boston, it tends to be 70s into the 80s in the summer. So not that bad. Of course, you'll get a lot more humidity, though, than you will here in San Diego. And I think that's the big differentiator is sometimes we're looking too much at temperature, but don't forget humidity can completely make different temperatures feel wildly different, even if it's the same, right? The same 80 degrees in San Diego, it's not that same 80 degrees in Boston. They will feel completely different. One, you'll be soaking wet, and the other one, you'll just be kind of cruising. So they have the humidity that here we're really happy not to have. All right, jumping over to sports. Let's take a look at the 2 cities pinned up against one another. And frankly, it isn't even close. San Diego, we have the San Diego Padres. We lost the Chargers. They're now in LA. And that's all we have. We don't have a hockey team now. Well, we do. We have a minor league hockey team. We don't have an NHL team. Okay, we have something called the Gulls. They're cute. It's not NHL. And we have a lack of, in the moment, MLS soccer team, but we do finally have one promised to us. We are going to get our MLS team in 2025. So that's great news. We'll have our second professional team at that point, major league professional team. And we do not have an NBA team. Now, there is word in San Diego at the old Sports Arena location. Sports Arena is still there. It's just a complete dump. There is word that it has been taken over by Kroenke, the same guy that built SoFi Stadium in LA, and that he is going to develop that into an NBA/NHL ready arena. We will see if that is true. But in the moment, we shift over to Boston. You're talking about the Boston Patriots. They're having a tough year, sure, but historical, unbelievable franchise, right? Everything, I mean, it's hard to get too much better than that. You have the Boston Celtics, you have the Boston Bruins in the NHL, and of course the Boston Red Sox, all 4 of those who could claim historical significance in the sports world, which matches the historical significance of the city itself. So there's no contest there's no contest at all if we're keeping track somewhere up here and we're tallying up who's winning what category, give sports to Boston. And here's the thing. It isn't just that we are going to give sports to Boston because they have more teams. They have the championships and they have the environment. They have the scene. I mean, there's going to Fenway Park and just the atmosphere, the electricity, right, in the air versus sometimes what can be a kind of laid back, much to our character, San Diego sports scene. And again, talked about it before, just there's so much to do in San Diego, so many options. You could be at the beach, you could be riding wave runners, you could be on a boat, you could be skiing, you could be out in the desert playing out there on dune buggies. You could be doing so many different things, enjoying our little beach cities, walking around, running on the beach. You could be doing so much that a city like San Diego, just from an electricity standpoint, the energy, the vibe of a sports event, it's not the same. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something a little bit more practical, like getting around the city. How do you, like transportation, public transportation particularly. Again, this is going to be an area where Boston is going to have the advantage simply because they have the metro system, right? A subway. We don't have one in San Diego. In San Diego, we have an okay bus system, never been on it, never going to. And then we have a trolley system That's basically an above ground train. It gets you to some places, most places not even close. It has very limited access points. So if you happen to live on the trolley line, it can be okay. But for the most part, the only way that I've personally ever used the trolley is during sporting events, trying to just park and it's easy to get in, get out. But aside from that, it's just not something that's all that practical. And it's not that I'm not using it because I'm not into public transportation. I love public transportation. When I'm in New York, when I'm in Boston, I'm on the subway, I'm in the metro. Not so much here. It's just, this is a driving city. So San Diego, expect to be on a freeway system, expect to be driving out on the road. It's a little bit less, I mean, it has its walkable areas. Okay, if you live in North Park and you're gonna go eat in North Park, right, it's very walkable. La Jolla, downtown La Jolla, it's walkable. But to go from neighborhood to neighborhood, you're absolutely jumping in a car in San Diego. It's going to be virtually unavoidable. The only people I really know that don't operate a vehicle on a day in, day out basis, live downtown, work downtown, eat downtown, play downtown. That's about it. And of course, they're still going to have a car. There's no such thing here in San Diego as not having a car as there is in some larger cities. So just know that from a transportation standpoint, that's the case. Something I do love about our transportation here, and Boston has it just as good, if not better, don't get me wrong. But we have a decent train system if you want to get up to Los Angeles, to Santa Barbara, to the San Francisco area. Then we do have nice Amtrak access in that way. But again, you have the same thing in Boston there. I mean, you can jump on a train, jump on a bus, you can be all over the Northeast pretty darn easily. So Edge, Boston once again. Now the university scene, if that's important to you or a family member, well, this one's interesting because San Diego thrives in its public school system anchored by UCSD, University of California, San Diego, and the UC system, right? The more famous ones being schools like UCLA, UCSD being a premier university in this country, private or public. Now, and of course, well, before we move on, we also have, of course, San Diego State, which is a gigantic university. And then we also have private USD being the preeminent private university here. And it does not quite have a national reputation. Boston, on the other hand, on the public school side, not as well known. But you're talking about Harvard, MIT. You're talking about schools like Brandeis. There's so many schools in the Boston market. And I don't mean the chicken spot, okay? I'm talking in the market, in Boston's marketplace, there are just a lot of schools. In addition to a number we haven't even mentioned, like Boston University, known as BU, Boston College, it goes on and on and on. So definitely a standout in the private school space, Boston. So what's better, Boston or San Diego? Well, if you've been paying attention, you know that I've given a lot of notches in Boston and some of these practical things, but there's the one that San Diego just takes. And there's kind of proof is in the pudding type of thing, which is there are a lot of people from Boston to move to San Diego because they are just seeking a happier way of life. They're seeking sunshine, they're seeking the outdoors, they're seeking not being so kind of crammed in tight quarters, tight streets, traffic, congestion, and they're just getting away from that. And we do not have a lot of people moving from San Diego to Boston. And so that should tell you a big part of the story. Overall, while they have, the food scene is really great, and just the history, it can't be overstated. The history in Boston is awesome, and you should 100% go there and check it out, walk around, spend an afternoon just having a nice time there for a few days. But on the day-to-day basis, just quality of life, quality of just the fresh air, the outdoors, the options of you could be anything from a mountain person to a desert person to a beach person. You could have differences of opinion in your household and everyone's going to be happy. There is so much to do and so much to be enjoyed in our outdoors, in the pure beauty of our landscape and on the smile on people's faces, that ultimately it's the reason why you'll see more Bostonians moving to San Diego than vice versa, and that's why this guy calls San Diego home. I hope you found this helpful, trying to create just a relatively unbiased analysis of both. I, of course, being someone who appreciates so many different parts of our country, and I love a big town, a small city, a big city. I mean, I can appreciate it all, but I'll tell you there are very few places to call home like San Diego. So I hope you found this, again, helpful. I'm Dan Beer, Beer Home Team here, eXp Realty. Go to the comments And when you go to the comments, leave us a question. You leave us a question. I personally answer every single one. And you'll see in the first pinned comment a number of ways to easily get a hold of us. Schedule a phone call, text message, Zoom call, whatever you like will help make your move easy. And we don't care if it's now, we don't care if it's 10 years from now. We're here to answer questions.